Let's sit so we can feel like we're all relaxed together.
You guys can see us, right?
Right, mostly.
Okay.
And you'll be able to hear the A's to your Q's.
Yes.
Because this is the Q&A.
Yes, we do hope you have cues.
Right. Thank you for coming out to the Tara Platt and Yuri Lowenthal Q&A.
And if you didn't know, yes, thank you. If you didn't know, I'm Tara Platt and this is Yuri Lowenthal.
Correct. Thank you. So you're in the right place. While I'm here, I'll tell you what. I'll introduce her, and you can introduce me.
Oh boy, this is exciting.
We'll do it that way. Okay, this is Tara Platt. She's an actress from TV, film, and voice acting. She does a lot of video games and animation in the whole voice acting realm, which is probably what you're familiar with. She most recently has, you probably all know her from Naruto, where she plays Tamari. She was also in the video games Mortal Kombat, or DC versus Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat versus DC. They're versus each other, it doesn't matter. Which she played
it depends which one you like better, you can put that one first.
But you're sort of the queen of the versus games because you're also in Marvel vs. Capcom.
I am.
Right, Trombone.
Yes.
Right? Exactly.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to the left of me is Yuri Lowenthal, and he is an actor as well as a writer and a producer, and he has appeared in numerous films and television shows, as well as movies, doing animated characters, as well as on-camera stuff. And you may know him as well from Naruto. He is Sasuke.
Correct.
But he's been in, let's see, Gurren Lagann. Did I say that right?
Gurren Lagann.
Great, yeah. And
Green Lagann.
Green Lagann.
That's how it's pronounced, Green Lagann?
Yeah. Green Lagann. Also, he was Superman in Legion of Superheroes. He's Ben 10 on Ben 10.
It's hero time.
It's hero time. He is the prince in the Prince of Persia video games, as well as numerous others. Are there any that you really wanted me to say?
You did great. I asked for 2 and you gave like 5.
Were there others that you really wanted me to say?
No.
No. We're married also, so there's that.
So sorry ladies, she's taken it. So let's
talk a little bit about voiceover. Yuri and I both got into voiceover at the same time, pretty much. We were both acting already in Los Angeles, doing television and film and theater, and just trying to pay the rent and make money as actors. And we turned to one another at the same time, pretty much, and said, "Hey, is there anything else we can do in the acting field where we can actually make money and eat?" And so we realized that there was this whole world of voiceover that we were not familiar with, that we sort of vaguely knew existed because we had seen animated movies or cartoons, but we just weren't that familiar with what it entailed. And so because neither of us knew that much about it, we didn't know anyone specifically that we could go to and say, "Tell us everything you know," we just decided to take a class. And so we got into a class and learned a little bit about voiceover. And from there, we started working in voiceover, and actually, Yuri booked, your first job was...
First SD Gundam Force. The little cute baby Gundams.
They're adorable.
That was the first job that I ever booked, and opened up to, a whole world of anime to me. She gives me a lot of credit, actually, in that we both sort of thought of voiceover at exactly the same time. She said, "What about voiceover?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, I don't know what that is!" She's like, "Shh. Calm down." "Yes, you do. You watch cartoons, right? You watch anime, like, since you were this big?" And I'm like, "Yeah." "And you play video games, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh my god, we can totally do that." So that was a light bulb moment for me. For some reason, I in all my panicking about finding acting work, I didn't even consider that was something that I could do. So yeah, we started out, in a very basic place. And if we could do it, anybody could do it, right?
Well, yes. And that's actually something that we talk about. We have written a book on voiceover called Voiceover Voice Actor, What It's Like Behind the Mic. And one of the things we specifically talk about in there is that there's not a specific voice that is needed for voiceover. Oh, that's exciting. I'm going in and out. Some people feel like, oh, those people have voices to do voiceover, or oh, you have a really good voice for voiceover, but that's not necessarily the case, because there's hundreds of, if not thousands of different kinds of voices out there in the world. I mean, I would go so far as to say, just like we all have an individual fingerprint, we all have an individual voice print, but there do tend to be sort of categories of voices, and we all tend to fall somewhere within those categories. But there's plenty of work out there for all different kinds of voices. And so there's not one particular kind of voice that will be successful in voiceover.
Yeah, I used to just think it was the in a world, where, you know, that guy. But,
which works, which also
yeah, which is awesome, but let me tell you, there's like one guy who does that. And then they all go to him. So it's not like, oh, we need, you know, a bunch of guys who sound like that. In fact, with the kinds of video games that are out there today and the kinds of shows, you see all different types of characters. It's not just hero characters and villain characters. I mean, you know, you play you pick up any game right now, and there are so many different types of characters in it that there's a need for all different kinds of voices. I used to hate my voice growing up. You know, you listen to your voice back on an answering machine or something like that, and or you hear, you know, voicemail that you've left, and you're like, oh my God, I sound like that? Ah! That's how I used to feel. I was like, oh, I sound like a little kid. No. But now that's my job, sounding like a little kid, and it's awesome. So don't beat yourself up about anything. And there are plenty of things that you can do. While I will be honest, you know, the recording work happens generally, you know, are concentrated in some of the larger cities.
Yeah, like Los Angeles, New York, probably Vancouver, Toronto.
Probably Vancouver is a big one.
Yeah, Dallas, Texas, and Austin, Texas. I think Chicago has a pretty good recording. So I mean, it tends to be in larger cities because they have recording studios and there's more jobs there. So
advertising companies.
Advertising companies. So you'll tend to want to live in one of those places, even though technically, in the wonderful wide world of technology that we live in, you could live anywhere in the world as long as you have a recording studio set up, because you could conceivably, via email, receive the copy, record it in your booth at home, send it back via email, and you never have to physically be there. But 9 times out of 10, or 99% of the time, I would say, they want to meet you, they want to work with you, they want to see you in person, they want to know who you are before they start doing remote recording sessions. Just
But to prepare, so you've already got one down in that you live in one of those, you know, big cities.
Or you live close enough that you were able to come here this weekend, which means you could live close enough.
Right. But there are plenty of things you can do. You know, oftentimes people will say, well, what can I do to prepare myself for that sort of thing? I'm really interested in possibly, you know, becoming a voice actor. And there are a lot of things that you can do before you even, you know, get to one of those towns or really start going out there and auditioning. And one of the things we talk about is focusing on the acting part of voice acting. Because people will come up and say, hey, I do all these crazy voices. I should be a voice actor. And I'm like, that's awesome. People, you know, love people who do crazy voices. But we found that the types, you know, in looking at the people that we work with, the people who, you know, work and keep working over the years are also really good actors. So there are several things you can do to hone those skills. You can take acting classes and drama classes wherever you are, you know, in school or
get into a play, something like that.
Yeah, local theater is great. Even reading aloud at home. I know it sounds really basic and, oh, I know how to read. So much of our work is we show up at a session, we haven't gotten the script in advance because sometimes they won't send it to you in advance. So you really only have a couple minutes to look at it before you start, you know,
being generous. Sometimes you don't even have a few minutes to look at it before you're recording. You're literally getting the copy in front of you and reading it as they're recording you sometimes.
Yeah, so getting used to, you know, pulling the text off the page and being able to make decisions really quick and to be comfortable with that will definitely help. So reading aloud every day, you can read anything, you know, the newspaper, whatever you've got. As well as, you know, practicing that acting stuff.
And another wonderful free thing, because reading aloud doesn't cost you anything. I mean, you could read the copy on the back of a water bottle. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. It's just training your mind to read for comprehension aloud. But one of the other things that you can do that's free is if you listen to the radio or you watch TV or you listen to anything on YouTube or whatever, mimic along with people doing commercials. And animation and video games, because you'll actually start to hear the qualities of sounds that they're saying and that they're expressing and that they're making, and you get to start to tune in your ear a little bit to vocal qualities and speed and pitch and rhythm and all the various things, because in a way, it's like playing a musical instrument. It's just that your instrument happens to be your voice. Your larynx is your instrument, so...
and plus, it'll get you used to looking ridiculous. Because a lot of what our job is as voice actors is to look ridiculous while we're working, and to not, be self-conscious about that. Like if we had a mirror in the booth where we were recording, most of us would probably quit right away. Because you look like a crazy person when you're in there. You're doing all these voices, you're jumping up and down, and
making weird faces.
Making weird faces and stuff, because that's what it sort of takes, sort of being open to. Because the thing about voice acting versus on camera or being on stage is you have to create the whole reality with just your voice. People can't see your expressions or your gestures or your body. So you have to put all of that reality into just your voice, and it takes a lot of imagination. I know, since you were a kid, adults have been trying to beat your imagination out of you, so you'll grow up, and be a pure productive member of society. But we found that it is our greatest weapon, our greatest strength in this job is our imagination.
Yeah, and one thing Yuri was talking about earlier that I think is a huge key part of the acting, besides the imagination and the creativity, is the questions and the decision-making process that you have, because you have to be able to make split-second decisions for character. And it doesn't matter what kind of voiceover you're doing, if you're selling water, or if you're playing a character on an animated show, or if you're just doing a promotion or a book on tape. It really doesn't matter what you're doing. You have to bring the words you're saying to life in such a way that whoever's listening to it is going to believe it on some level. Get the humanity in the character, understand what it is you're selling, really tune into the words that you're saying so that the whole purpose of what you're recording is fruitful. And so one way that you can do that is Basic English 101, which is, or whatever, I don't know, literature class?
Reporter.
Be a reporter. It's the who, what, where, when, why, how. Ask those questions that you learned when you were in English class. And ask those questions of the material that you're reading. Who am I talking to? Why am I saying this? Where am I? What's going on? What do I know about the information? Really delve into that, but do it in such a way that you're making those decisions really, really fast. Because the faster you get at making those decisions, the more alive the word and the text off the page becomes when you're reading it. Because you feel the inflections, just like I'm speaking to you now, and I'm just naturally giving different kinds of weight to different words that I'm saying, so that I'm making sure that you can understand what it is that I'm talking about. I don't say every word exactly the same, because if I did that, it would be very monotonous and you would all fall asleep. And so naturally, when we speak to one another, we try to make sure that our content is being expressed and that the other side of, whether it's the microphone or the other person, is receiving it.
And the beauty of it is that you don't even have to come up with the right answers. As long as you ask those questions to your brain about whatever the thing is you're reading, it gets your brain thinking about it. There are no right answers.
Yeah.
And if you do that, if you ask yourself all those questions, you're going to be, yards, miles ahead of any other person at that audition. Because I bet you most of the people who show up, they look at the script and they're like, okay, let's just go in there and do this. And they haven't really thought about it.
And the same is true when you're actually on the job. A lot of times when we do video game recording, we may have thousands and thousands of lines or loops to get through in a session. And the line may be get down or over here. And you can say that any number of ways. You can shout to someone, over here! You could whisper, over here. Like, there's so many different ways you can say any particular line. And it doesn't really matter what the right answer is, as long as you've made a decision. Because if you make a decision, then the director can go, oh, no, no, no. The person you're talking to is at the end of the hall, rather than right across from you. But if you don't make a decision, everything sort of is just very generic and nothing sounds alive. And then the work that you're doing is not interesting to listen to, and people won't really respond to it. And you're doing it because you want someone to respond to it.
Yeah, but we're starting to get into specific things, and we want to make sure that we answer whatever questions you have, whether they be about voice acting or shows we've worked on, or
you name it, you can ask it.
What our favorite ice cream is. I don't care.
You do Sasuke and Kokios.
Yeah.
In the first season, Sasuke ends up kind of falling in love with during that, later on, during the episode where she ends up getting how did you feel as Sasuke doing that?
That was a really tough time for me. No, that was a really tough scene for me because, like we had mentioned before, we don't get the scripts really to read in advance. And if I haven't already, watched ahead in anime or read ahead in the manga, I don't know what's coming. So I didn't know any of that was going to happen. I think that is truly one of the great tragic moments of any show I've ever worked on, ever. Not even limited to anime, and anything. That she, who is so beloved by her people, gets turned around like that and ends up, Yeah, I know, sorry, spoilers, but you should watch the show, it's awesome. When I got to that point in there, I actually got really emotional because I didn't know what was coming. And it was such a big surprise, and for whatever reason, sometimes things hit me and sometimes things don't hit me when I'm working. But that hit me really hard.
Hi, so this is a question for both of you. Since you guys have been working with Atlas for a while now, what are your current thoughts of Atlas going into bankruptcy?
I just heard about that the other day. I don't know. I mean, it's sad that Atlas, who does a lot of great games and localizes a lot of great, we localize a lot of their games in the States. Here's the funny thing about bankruptcy. Sometimes companies go bankrupt and the projects keep going, or at least even the company having gone bankrupt still goes on producing things for a while. We can only hope the best for Atlas because they've brought us so many cool projects. And it's getting to work on Persona as long as we have.
Yeah.
So it makes me a little nervous for them, but I'm hoping that they'll find a way through it.
I mean, they may merge with another company. I mean, there's so many things, and we're not on that side of things because we tend to get, as voice actors, we tend to get hired once the project's already in development and in process. And so, like Yuri said, we only found out recently that there was anything happening with it because we're so far down the chain of command that like we're not.
I found out on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I find out most of my things.
It's not like they called us up and were like, by the way, you guys, we want to let you know. We don't get that kind of information. So we're very hopeful, like Yuri said, that that there will be a continuation of the projects, that maybe there's hope, that maybe they won't really go bankrupt, maybe they go bankrupt but somebody rescues them, maybe they merge with another company, like there's so many possibilities that hopefully the projects that they're working on and the types of projects that they do, because it's such a great company that they localize, like Yuri said.
Here's the sad but awesome thing about them going bankrupt. You know why, and you guys will hopefully appreciate this. A lot of companies in recent years, a lot of video game companies have, because sometimes it's hard to sell the game or to sell the show, they'll take a hit on the quality. They'll go, oh well, let's spend less money on the game, in development, or oh let's take the let's hire voice actors, in some far-flung country where they barely speak English because it's so much cheaper. And Atlas has never done that. Even when threatened with, oh, I don't know how we're going to make this work, I don't know if we have the money, they've consistently brought quality to their projects. And now, unfortunately, that's, they've clearly, they've done that. And I respect that so much, and they have such a respect, a deep respect for the fan base to do that. But sometimes even quality, doesn't win out.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, and not to get super political and like be the whatever police, but honestly, a lot of people don't pay for games. A lot of people don't pay for animation. They don't pay for the work that is being done, and then these companies can't continue. I mean, there used to be dozens upon dozens of companies in Japan that were doing the original animation, and that's dwindled and dwindled and dwindled because there's so much pirating and so much stuff like that. And I'm not your mom, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but there is an issue with the whole way that the whole sort of system works, and that it's so easy for people to just get the content without paying for it, and then if there's nobody paying for the content, then those companies can't pay for the people to work for it. Like, it's a big sort of cycle and a big system, and so it's just I don't know, just like the tip of the iceberg of part of the problem is things like that happening, and it's disappointing and disheartening, but hopefully, you know, people will see it as a sign of like, wow, if we really like this type of material, if we like this content, if we like these games, if we like this animation, we will support this being created, and then that way we keep those people working, because otherwise, there's no reason for them to continue with games and new animated series, because if they can't keep themselves supported, they will go away. I mean, it's just supply and demand.
So long answer to that. You know, the short answer is we're very sad to hear about that. But we hope that they'll rally somewhere.
In your career of voice acting, for both of you, have there ever been any roles that you really didn't like playing, or that you really didn't like doing, but you like had to do them?
I don't know that there's. I mean, it's such a sort of a dream job. I mean, we audition for roles every day that we don't get, that we wish we had gotten. But there are a few roles that I was like, oh man, I wish they hadn't hired me for that. You know, unless I've screwed it up by, like, on a video game, you know, coming up with this character voice that I thought sounded really cool in the audition. Like, oh, it'd be really great if I do this voice, you know? And then I get hired, and they're like, great, so 4 hours, make sure you can scream in that voice for 4 hours, because we've got a lot of fighting. And I'm like, oh no, why did I do that? Well, because, you know, 5 minutes into it, my throat hurts, and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd, you know, come up with something easier. Those are the only situations, I think in which I regret having, you know, played a role, but even then, I wouldn't trade this job for anything.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like Yuri said, I mean, we're thankful that we're getting hired and somebody's willing to pay us money to go play, because we really enjoy what it is we do. But I mean, we've both been fired from jobs too, and even when you get fired, you understand that, okay, it's the best for the project, and maybe I wasn't the right fit, or I chose a bad voice to practice out on this, and I shouldn't have done that.
And usually it's not your fault that you get fired. It's just they realize, oh, you know, that's really not what we wanted for that character. After all, let's, you know, find somebody else.
Are either of you involved in Final Fantasy 14?
Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah.
That's because that's an upcoming game. I would imagine we're not allowed to talk about whether we're involved with it. Because that's one of the problems also with doing this job is video game companies are hugely secretive about.
You have to sign your firstborn child away.
Before you know the games come out, and yeah, they make us sign these ridiculous NDAs saying that if we talk about the game,
we pay $500,000 and stuff if we breach an NDA contract. It's
which is far more than they paid us to work on it. So it doesn't quite balance out.
No.
So we can neither confirm nor deny our participation in the new Final Fantasy game.
Just a question about Prelay and ADR. Is there a preference that you both have to one or the other, or are both just, you know, so different that you can enjoy them both and they don't really depend on each other?
That's a great question. For people who don't know, Prelay is the original animation. So it's what you would sort of see like Saturday morning cartoons, where you're recording the voices of the characters before they're actually animating it, and then ADR is the additional dialogue recording, which is traditionally what we do for things like the Japanese animated shows that have already been recorded and aired in Japan, and then they come over and we're just replacing the dialogue. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. For me, my preference, because I enjoy working with the other actors, I love doing the Prelay, the original record, because you literally, like, you're all together in a room with your microphones and your scripts, and you can see each other and you can react off of one another, and there's something really fun about that, because part of acting is the reaction, is getting to have those moments. So if somebody goes, hey, you look nice today, and you can go, why, thank you. Like, you can have that sort of game that you play when you would naturally respond to someone and you play off their words and their inflection. And when you're recording with ADR, sometimes you may be the first person to go in and record because you record by yourself for ADR. And so you may not know how they're going to say their line. So you have to sort of say your line how you think they may say it, but you don't know how they're actually going to say it. And so then it limits both your choices and then their choices, because when they come in to record to you, then they can't do the crazy thing because you didn't react to the crazy thing. So like, there's little moments like that that get lost. But then again, if you're working on a great title and you're like, I'm so excited we're working on Naruto, it doesn't matter that it's not original animation because I get to work on this character, I get to work on this show, it's a lot of fun, you know. things like that. So it's tricky, but for me, I tend to like to be in the room with the other actors.
And you can come away with a great show where all the actors have recorded separately, just because it works out well sometimes, and you know, put a good acting together with good acting, and it somehow works. But there is a magic that happens when you get all the all the actors in the room together. That's hard to get when you're just recording solo. But you know, it hasn't stopped good shows like when we did Afro Samurai was technically Prelay animation for us. It was not a Japanese Highway dub, and yet we recorded everything separately. That was always the question I would get. What's it like working with Samuel Jackson? And I'm like, I don't know, because he was never there when I recorded. But still, like that show I thought came out great. So it is definitely fun to play in a room with actors, but you still get a...
It's also hard to get work done though sometimes. I will say that
That's
sometimes those original animated sessions, you go in and what should only take you 2 hours to get the work done, takes you 4 hours, because after every line people are making jokes and people are being silly, and then the laughter, and then you have to re-record because it was so funny, and so that can be
That's definitely true.
tricky.
Like Nolan North is the king of being funny in the room. Like forget about getting any work done. You know, he's a genius, but he's also an unstoppable force of comedy, and will always make the other actors laugh. And it'll generally take longer to get through the session, but it's always more fun when he's there. So it's a trade-off.
A great question, thank you.
Hi. I just want to say first that I feel like a childhood dream after Naruto for me to be the same as Yuri Lowenthal, because I was kind of in love with Sasuke. Yay!
I'm sorry I don't look exactly like him.
Oh no, I'm not complaining.
He's not permanent mentions. So.
But my question is, do you watch a lot of the stuff you work on, or play the games of the stuff that you work on?
I love watching anime and like American cartoons and playing video games, but the simple fact of the matter is, as I've gotten into this business and been working, I've also become a creator of a lot of those things too. I'm trying to produce my own shows and write things, and that takes time away from all my video game playing that I used to do. So while I would love to play all the games that I work on, and I have this ridiculous tendency to buy all the games that I work on, and then not have time to play them, so they just stack up next to my TV, totally wrapped still in there, and the higher it gets, the more depressed I get about it. So I've stopped buying all of those. But I would love to. The simple fact of the matter is I used to watch a lot and play a lot, and these days not as much. I'm not quite as nerdy as I used to. Being a creator has taken some of the nerd away from me.
It hasn't taken it away. I just have a little whip in the corner and I crack it, and I make it work.
But you should see my office. An office I guess should be a very serious place of work, and it's not serious at all. It's full of action figures and comic books and stuff. So it's hard to get focused in there sometimes.
And I was never very good at games. I enjoy watching them being played by someone who is very good at games, but I'm not good at them myself. So I actually really enjoy watching like the cutscenes and other people play through. But it takes me so long to try to figure out how to not make the character just walk into the wall that it's really not very fun. And so it's not. I don't tend to play the games that I'm in because I can't get far enough for anything to really happen. That's not very fun.
Point taken. I think the last. I can't think of the last time I finished a game. The closest I've got to finishing games in recent years was Tales of the Abyss and Bayonetta. As far as games I had worked on, I have this brand new shiny copy of The Last of Us sitting on my couch at home. I'm like, oh come on, just let me play for a few minutes. I'm talking to myself now, Let's play for a few seconds. I feel like Gollum and Smeagol, it's like, the guy who's like, we have to play the games, and I'm like, no, write the scripts, no, we must play. Yeah, so it's like that at home.
But then I do enjoy watching, if I can catch an episode of something that either of us have been on. It's always fun. And I also have to say, because we don't just do animated shows and video games, we work different commercials, and we do narration, and we do promo. Pretty much any kind of work in voiceover as well as on camera, we're both dabbling in. And so
we're voice sluts.
we are, yes. And so, so I have to say it's lots of fun, like if I'm driving in the car and a commercial comes on and Yuri's in the commercial or I'm in the commercial, like it's always exciting. It's just like, oh, that's me. Or that's my husband.
You can always tell because if you're following that car, the car goes.
But yes, it's always exciting to get to, I think, to see the fruits of your labor. I mean, I would imagine just like a chef probably enjoys getting to sit down and have a meal that they've created. It's always fun for us to get to sort of partake in something that we've gotten to work on.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you do 2 of my favorite lines?
I might, if you remind me of them, because there's so many lines, and if you want me to yell skate, it might hurt, but I will do it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's just based on your cosplay, it's just a random guess, but no, go right ahead.
Can you say, do you know Tri-Edge?
Yeah, as Haseo. Do you know Tri-Edge? I love that series of games. I was always so sad that we didn't get to do the dub of the show, and then I think they released it may have just been like an HD mashup of all the cutscenes, which were always very long in the .hack series, the .hack GU series. And they didn't have us dub that either. I think they just did a subtitled version. But was there another line?
I really love Dr. Stiles.
Oh, Dr. Garrett Stiles. Yeah, for Trauma Team, and yeah. So maybe something like, begin the operation. I love Dr. Garrett. He's so happy about all the diseases he has to cure.
The best kind of doctor is a happy doctor that's happy to cure you.
That's true. Thank you for for reminding me of those 2 awesome titles.
In Naruto, Sasuke's and Naruto's rivalry, do you ever feel like you get so into it you end up being a bit outside of the acting that you get a bit competitive with others sometimes?
I don't think so. I think that's one of the characters that has been fun for me to play because it's allowed me to really access a dark part of me. It was like the first character before Sasuke. I played a lot of sort of happy-go-lucky characters, and then like I started playing Sasuke, and everybody's like, "Oh man, that guy's really good at the emo characters." But the cool thing about that was that I had never really gotten to play a character that really asked me to go to a dark place. But luckily, with that character, I can step away from it pretty easily. It doesn't like follow me into my life or anything. I don't find myself, if somebody cuts me off in a lane, I don't,
You don't throw fireballs at them?
I don't throw fireballs for one. Okay, once I threw a fireball at a car. No, but I don't like chase them and seek vengeance, till the whole clan is dead. So that's. Yeah, and plus, because I know all the other actors on the show, there's a certain part of me that's like, oh, well, that's just Miley, or oh, that's just Liam O'Brien, so it's, it always ends up being okay, but I have a fondness for our emo little friend.
And one more thing, do you ever feel like something Sasuke does is like totally dumb, that he should not have done that, or you...
Everything Sasuke does, I from the very beginning. But I guess he's got to work it out, you can tell somebody, hey, you shouldn't do that, but until they sort of figure it out for themselves. Plus, he's gotten bad information. I think he's a victim of bad information.
From your character?
You got a line from our characters in Persona. And which was our favorite Persona game. There's a part of me that wants to say my favorite Persona game was Catherine. But Yosuke is just so much. I have such a Brosuke. I have such a soft spot in my heart for Brosuke. It'd be hard for me to choose anything but B4. So that's tough.
Was it Arena that we just...
Yeah, we did Arena and Golden like back to back.
Yeah.
Is there a specific line that you would want to hear?
Maybe one of the Persona summoning lines?
One of the summoning lines? All those summoning lines, the language was so weird, it would be hard to think of one specifically. And of course, whenever whenever I think of Broske, I always think of lines like,
Yosuke, get back to class.
oh, wow, that was commanding and hot all at the same time. Oh, critical hit to the Nets! One, and, I just want to welcome you all, welcome to your Jeunesse. I just want to welcome you all to Jeunesse, really.
I want to congratulate all of you on your graduation.
You did the voice acting for the main character in Fallout New Vegas?
In Fallout New Vegas? I did a lot of characters in Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas is one of those funny games that you work on, and there are so many characters in the game that they can't afford to hire a different actor for every character, because there aren't that many actors in Los Angeles. So what ends up happening is you'll be playing Fallout New Vegas, and this guy you'll walk up to a guy and talk to him, and he'll sound just like me, and he'll say, well, he'll be like this giant guy, and then my voice will come out of him, and he'll say, hey, you should really talk to that guy over there, he's crazy and has the information. And so you walk over there, and you talk to that guy, and he's like, hey, how's it going? And it's the same voice, and you're like, But there's so many characters in the game that they can't always tell, when you're going to be interacting with who. And so yeah, while I don't know that I played the lead character in Fallout New Vegas, I played a lot of different characters in Fallout New Vegas. So you will, if you play it for long enough, you'll end up hearing me.
All the characters that sound like him.
Right. It's like me and Liam O'Brien played all the characters in Fallout New Vegas. So that was fun, and it's fun to play because I hear myself a lot. So yes, to answer your question, sort of. Yeah. I work because I think we had to record 60,000 lines of dialogue for Fallout New Vegas, which shows you what sort of a monumental game that was. I think I worked 8 or 9 days on that, in 4-hour sessions each. So that's a lot. Like when I did for the Prince of Persia game, when I did Prince of Persia Sands of Time, I worked like 3 days or 4 days. So that just gives you an idea of how much the volume of lines you recorded for that.
Have any of you read or watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
What adventure?
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. No.
No.
It sounds awesome.
Oh, okay.
Does it involve cookies?
Oh, because JoJo's.
JoJo's. Do you guys have Trader Joe's here?
It's a local thing.
Trader Joe's, they have a cookie called JoJo's, so never mind.
And every cookie, every JoJo's cookie is a bizarre adventure.
It is.
This is sort of a small job, so you may not remember it, but how on earth did you manage to get a job with Wizards of the Coast being like Ralph Zarek for their random promo video?
Wait, how did I get a job doing what promo video?
They made a promo video for, I think, Dragon's Maze or Maze's End, which is like the latest set of Magic.
Oh, for Magic the Gathering?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so cool. My agent got a call saying, hey, we're really interested in maybe having Yuri do this promo video for the internet we got for a new Magic the Gathering thing. And while I don't play Magic the Gathering, I'm very familiar with it, and a lot of my friends play it, and they keep trying to get me to play it, and I play D&D from way back, so it's all still in that same world for me. And so my agent called me up and said, so these guys called me one, it's like, yes, I'll do it, yes, what is it, yes. And so I went in, and they gave me all this sort of character background, and showed me some drawings, and it was literally just that, what I recorded for that promo, fits on a page. And usually for something like that, it won't take that long. We'll do it several times to make sure that they got it. But there were like 20 guys on the phone from like all over the world, and I would read something once, and then they'd say, okay, now with that one word, could you give us, and we were like there for 4 hours for that one page of dialogue, and then I waited for a long time until it came out, and when it came out, I was like, oh my god, it came out, so cool. Yeah, that was a random sort of thing, because I had never voiced anything for those guys before at all.
Anyways, I brought by a copy of the card that you are, so I'll get you to sign that later on.
Yes. Yes, I will sign.
This is an after 18.
Sorry. Okay. I will sign that card for you, sir.
I was playing this game where you, Tara, voiced the character, and I just kept spamming that laugh. I'm talking about League of Legends. So, why did they remove her classic time for the dance joke from that game?
Yeah, I'm not sure, we're talking about League of Legends. I'm not sure why they changed any of the lines and things like that. You know, that's not information that they give to us. They just say we're removing this, they just take it out. So I don't really know why they did that. Maybe somebody complained, I don't know, maybe somebody didn't like it. I'm not really sure why they chose to do that.
Do you think Yuri will join the league?
I don't know. You know, that's the thing about being an actor is, you know, if we could just sort of choose any project we wanted to be on, it would be a different, you know, game entirely. But you know, we take the jobs that we get, and you know, audition for like 100 jobs, and you know, get maybe 3 of them. So maybe, you know, I can only hope.
Alright, that's everything. And you were really good as Cecil, Harvey, and
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Final Fantasy 6 kid, but I really liked it.
Right on. Thank you. Yeah, that was sort of a dream come true role.
So I cast her.
Oh, cast her. She's great.
Right?
Yeah.
Would you guys mind saying a line from Tiger and Bunny?
Oh.
Tiger and Bunny, yeah.
Don't call me Bunny!
It's if you haven't seen the show, it really doesn't make any sense, does it? Because the show is called Tiger and Bunny.
We're going to camera 2 in 3, 2, Tiger, stop it.
Wow, that was that sort of that, you used that sexy teacher voice.
I know, they cast me for that a lot. I can't help it.
I love it. I love it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. I love that show. I love Tiger and Bunny.
Hey, for both of you, can you please just yell at Persona, please?
Just yell Persona?
Yes.
On 3 Persona. 1. Maybe we should pull the mics away so we don't. 1, 2, 3.
Persona!
I'm a really big fan of Helsing, and I was wondering, Yuri, can you do a Pip voice?
Hip hip hooray!
Yeah, hip hip hooray! Let's see, Pip, he lives sort of in here. He is French, for those of you who don't know the show. He runs this battalion of, or this squad of mercenaries called the Wild Geese. But I think my favorite comes from not the most recent one, but one of the first ones, where he does some terrible, crazy stuff, and he ends with he blows a bunch of stuff up, and he says, "Now where did I put that helicopter?" I love Pip. He's great. Plus, he lets me talk like this, and I feel much more, you know, sexy like this. Right.
Do you need the beret?
The beret. Cigarette.
What is the most awkward thing a fan has asked you to do, if there is any such story?
The most awkward thing a fan has asked us to do. Generally, the fans are pretty respectful. I'm trying to think. I did have someone come up on the autograph line, and this was sort of my fault for being naive, I guess. She said, "Would you sign a bra?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." You know, thinking that she was gonna, you know, take a bra out of her bag that's like her favorite bra or whatever, and then I would sign it. And
we're sitting next to each other for
right,
so
we're signing.
People are coming down the line and we're like, "What's your name?" And we're signing.
Oh, a bra?
And so he's like, "A bra?"
Yeah, sure. You know, lay it on me. And she just pulled up her shirt and I went,
like this.
Yeah, just pulled up her shirt and I went,
"Oh." She was very well endowed. So then Yuri looked at me and I was like, "Well, you said you would sign it, go for it."
She threw me under the bus.
No, I didn't. You already told her you would do it.
She threw me under the boobs.
Yes. So then I was like, "Well," and so then he, of course, because when you sign on fabric, you need to sort of stretch it, because if you don't stretch the fabric, it just sticks to the marker. So then poor Yuri, of course, was like.
I was trying to find an area that, you know, that wouldn't be awkward for me to, you know, to.
Or inappropriate.
Or inappropriate because, you know, we're surrounded by hundreds of people.
So we no longer sign any article of clothing besides t-shirts that are being worn.
Right. Unless you can lay it on the table. Awkward, inappropriate. I got seriously glommed once when I was really sick at a convention. I had a fever, but I decided to. I must have picked it up on the plane or something. But you know, I wanted to make sure I went to all the panels and stuff, so I would hide out in the hotel room, and sweat and shake, and then they'd knock on my door, and I'd come down and do my panel. And I was coming down for an event, and somebody just clocked me from the side, just glommed me, and I fell over, and I was, I couldn't see straight for a while, and she was jumping up and down. She goes, "Oh my God, I've always wanted to meet you, Chris Sabat." So that was kind of awkward, because if you know Chris Sabat, I don't look anything like Chris Sabat, but it was a con in Austin, in Texas, so I guess.
Yeah, I would say that's actually the most awkward though, is just people like sort of physically manhandling us or grabbing us without kind of, I don't know, the nice human touch of saying, "Do you mind? Is it okay?
Can I have a hug?
Can I have a hug?" Even just somebody sort of grabbing you is sort of a little, I don't know, it's a little off-putting because you don't expect it, or you're off balance, or you don't know what's coming, so you think you're being attacked.
Right.
It's always a little of that.
I don't think.
No, for the most part, everyone's very respectful. I mean, occasionally people will give us presents, and we can't take food and things like that just because, well, A, we eat sort of a very restricted what we eat anyway, but also it's just kind of.
Plus, Greg Ayers ate some cookies once that had some stuff in them, and I'll always remember that story.
Yeah, so we don't eat any food.
Yeah, the fan thought it would be nice for Greg Ayers to eat those cookies, and so didn't tell him what was in those cookies. We play out some fake awkward moments in a film, sort of a documentary / mockumentary that we made going to different cons. It's called Con Artists.
It's coming out later this year.
Yeah,
it's a feature film.
It's all edited and it's almost completely done. We're just finishing up the end credits, and we shot it going to 10 different conventions. And a lot of it is sort of interviews with people at the cons, but there was a lot of stuff, that we thought we had funny ideas that we had, so we play acted a bunch of different things as well. And so there's some awkward things in that. Yeah. Stay tuned, I'm sure you'll get to see it sometime.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very, very silly.
You play Haseo from Doghack?
Yes.
When you went for the audition for it, did you have any idea above hand how unbelievably similar he looks to Sasuke?
No, but I suspect one of the reasons they asked me to come in and audition was because of Sasuke. That has happened from time to time. Yeah, I remember going in and whenever you go in for an audition, you just sort of, unless they tell you specifically you want exactly this, you go in with sort of your best idea of what the character might be. And I'm sure it leans sort of in the Sasuke direction, but maybe a little, just a little more ornery, a little more petulant. But yeah, I remember looking at that character and going, "Oh, so that's what you want me to do." Yeah. Thank you guys for